Next up, we're going to do the layer. This layer is what you're going to have to mimic for the remaining three. Hopefully you can duplicate them. Hopefully you get the gist of it. But this is animation. This will not take much. First thing I want to do is add that trigger, right? So I need to make sure that when I click on my fade button, that my fade layer is going to show. We know the trigger wizard at this point. We all should have a very comfortable understanding of how to show and or add any type of trigger to this module. So I'm now going to go to my layer here, and I'm going to, I'll keep my base in here. And all of this, again, is stuff that we've seen and done before, right? I just have shapes on here. This is a shape, this is a shape, this is a shape, this is a shape. Nothing crazy. I also have this shape. Something else that I've done is I have the another shape here, and you'll understand why I have that in a moment. And then, of course, I have a close button. Okay? So this is how each of your layers are going to look. One thing that I wanted to show you, and the way that I went about this, is I've added this big white box here. Okay? And first, let me just hide that. So if I hide that, you could see slightly that there's things going on in the background there, right? So I'm going to go back to my base layer, and I'm just going to preview this. So this all happens. We know everything that's going on. But when I click at fade now, my layer comes up just as I wanted to, just as I said. But you can see things in the background there, right? That's a little busy, a little too much per se. So I'm going to close that. And we do have options. Every single layer you see right here, just like in this base layer when we had the properties panel here, some of us may or may not turned off the previous and next button. We also have that option here with the fade, right? So with this layer now, I can go into my properties, and if I wanted, I could say, well, let's hide objects on that base layer. Let's just go ahead and get rid of that, so nothing is seen except for my layer. So when I do that, I can go ahead and hit OK. And now I preview it. So the cool thing is I do have these navigation here. So I can see what's going on. And if you could imagine this being content, it wouldn't just simply say fade and grow. It would be like, you know, some sort of title. Albeit this might be the first one, the second one, that we want to see these in any type of order. So now when I click on this fade in, it's okay because I don't see anything in the background here now because I clicked that little box, but now I don't see my other points of navigation. Is it okay? Sure, but when you look at learning and how things should be in that whole glass box versus black box thing, it's best that we're able to let the learner know where they're at within a whole succession of content. So that's just not going to work for us. So I'm going to hit close, exit this, and then quite simply go back to that and allow for everything to hide on my base layer. So I want to uncheck that, and then I'm just going to go back into my layer and show that white box again. That way, the only thing I'm covering up is that busy content, but allowing my navigation that is just here on the base layer to show. Okay, so going back to this, first and foremost, since we're on the topic of that, all I did here was, and you'll see this, is I just took a transparent, I'm going to uncheck, no, keep it. I just took a transparent box here and put that over top of this navigation. And what that does is, now that I have my close button here, you see that's at the very top, then I have my faded rectangle, and then I have all this other stuff. But what that allows is the fact that when I'm here, I can click on any one of these. But now when I click in this layer, this kind of gives me the, I don't want to say, some sort of aesthetic feel that I am just on this layer, so I didn't have to mess with making any other states on these other ones. But I also can't click on them. So really the only thing I can do at this point, again, if this was a module, is click on any type of content I may or want the user to use here. And then the only thing they're able to do is click close. So what I really forced them into this situation here where they have to click on this little box to get to the content, and then they have to click on this box to close and continue on. But that way they know they've been there, and then they can move on to other ones. And I guess before I begin, I will show you that these buttons here are nothing more than, in the States, I have a normal, which we've done, the hover, which we've done, and then I did a visited here. So that's exactly what these states are. And then if I go to this, and I will close this, the only thing in this base layer, after I turn that one off, so the only thing in this fade layer is this content, that white box that I used, and then the close button. And that, of course, that close button will be the one that carries over onto these other ones as well. So here is something interesting that we are going to do. Right now, if you see this, our timeline has each of these boxes appearing at a certain point, okay, and then leaving at a certain point. So I'm just going to head and preview, I'll preview this slide. And you can see it does that, waits a little bit, and then it leaves, okay? Why that worked, I don't know. What I want this to do is, well, let me show you one more time. I think I had extra stuff in there and I shouldn't have. Oh, there we go. So you can simply see here, I'm going to click that again. Everything shows on and then it leaves. And that now mimics what this timeline is supposed to do. You could see from what we understand about a timeline, it's going to wait a little bit, then appear, wait a little bit, then appear, wait a little bit, then appear. But then if we have white space over here as well, so that means as this playhead goes across, it's going to appear, and then they're going to begin to disappear. Which is exactly what we want, but we want that information to appear later. Disappear later, not appear later. So to do that, we need to first add our animations, right? So we know how to do a fade animation on this. We want this to have a fade animation, so I'm going to say fade. And I'll leave it at that, at 50. I'll do the same thing for all of these. So they're all going to fade, and they're going to take, well, did I do 50 in all of them, or just that one? No, I got to do 50 in all of them. So they're out now, all going to fade in. But as discussed, we would also like them to fade out. So on each of these, I am now going to go to the exit animation and also say fade, and also go to 50. Also say fade, also go 50, fade, 50, fade, 50. Okay? So everything is cool. I'm going to preview this. This should now fade in and fade out. Fade in, fade out. Fade in, fade out. Fade in, fade out. Okay, great. Problem is it's happening way too fast. We're not having any option here to click on any one of these. So we're kind of in a spot. As you can imagine, just like we did in Captivate, when we used that crazy little pause button. Remember that? Every time we put a button on there, there was a pause down here in the timeline that would make everything stop. Well, you can do that very same thing in Storyline. And if you just drag it, what we want this to do is pause right about here, right? And if you look down here, you can see the blue part would be the entrance animation. It would then pause, and then the remaining part would be the exit animation. To do that, all we have to do is create what's referred to as a cue point. So at 1 second here, literally at 1 second maybe, about right there, I'm going to right click in this timeline with the seconds, or way at the top here, I'm going to right click, and then you can see it says create cue point. The moment that I say create cue point, now move this away, you can see that this little number 1 up here is now sitting at the top. So we want this to pause. Again, we know it's a playhead. We know this is a timeline from Captivate to Storyline. We know how this works. So we're saying we want to pause this timeline when it reaches this cue point right here. So we know that. So we go up to our little trigger, and we're going to do what? The action is go through here, go through here. We see pause media. We don't have any media playing. Media would be music, music would be video. But way down here we see under more, pause timeline. So I'm going to click on pause timeline here, and then just finish the rest. So what timeline? You can see that it's this layer. I want to pause the timeline of this layer, and then it says when. And I don't want it to when timeline starts because I want those animations to occur. I want it when timeline reaches. I also don't want it to end because I have that exit. So when timeline reaches, and then you can see here I have an option of time or cue point. In this sense, I'm going to click cue point because of the one I created. And then you can see automatically here it does that number 1, the one that I put down there. As you can imagine, if I had 42 different cue points in here, from this drop-down list, I could choose from those. I only have the one, so I'm going to say OK. Okay? Beautiful. So now I'm going to preview this layer. And now it should show my entrance animations, but pause. So fade. Everything's entered, and then you see it paused. Now it stopped exactly where I wanted it to. So next up, I need to close this out. But I want it to close out by using the animations, the exit animations that we did. I don't want to simply say hide this layer. Well, you can see here I have a hide this layer, and we'll get to that. I'll actually delete that. I don't simply want it to hide the layer, which I could do, so I'll just go ahead and click on this button and say hide layer. So I click fade in, everything appears, fades the way that I want it to. When I hit close, it just disappears. That's perfectly fine, but that's not what this exercise is, and that's not going to, I don't know, make your learner all excited and stuff. So exactly what you think you need to do at this point is what you need to do. If I went ahead and paused the timeline for stuff and things to occur, for this to then exit correctly, I want to resume the timeline, right? So with this selected, I'm going to go over into my triggers. I'm going to look around. And I see resume timeline. So I'm going to click on that. Again, what timeline? Timeline of this layer. When user clicks, and of course I didn't name it, but it's rectangle 5 here. I'll hit OK. And then I got to delete that hide layer because that'll screw things up. But then as you saw before, because I want that to close, but only after my animations occur, I'm going to go ahead and say hide this layer, so hide layer, this layer, but when timeline ends. And then the timeline, of course, would be the timeline of fade. And that just simply means, if you look at my playhead, it's going to go along, it's going to go along, it's going to allow all my entrance animations to occur, it will pause here. Then I can do stuff and things to my content. I'm going to hit close, which in turn will continue my timeline, allowing my exit animations to occur. And then when it reaches the end of the timeline here, it will close automatically. Okay? Let's go ahead and preview that. Go to this slide. Okay, here we go. So fade in, driving along, it pauses, everything stopped, and then I'm going to hit close, and everything goes away. And as it reaches the end of that timeline, it then closes that layer, puts my button into the visited state, and we are done. One more thing that I'd like you to do, just because, to see what other animations are out here, I have this gray area here, which is kind of, I don't know, they call it framing. So it kind of frames my content area a little bit. I'm going to add an animation of that. And because we already have that cue point, all I have to do is go up with this selected, and I think I did a spin or swivel. Just swivel. So I can hit swivel, duration of 5, no big deal. And then I'm going to do an exit swivel of 5, and that's it. So now my gray frame is also going to fade accordingly. Coming along, and it's like, whoa, got stuff going on, can't click anywhere, nothing much I can do. I mean, we'll deal with these later. Now I close it, and everything goes away like that. So I will now close this and go to the animation. You'll have to do the same. I want you to also create a layer for grow, a layer for fly in, and a layer for wipe that goes and acts in the same way that this does. Okay? So I'm going to close this now. We'll have one more video talking about the properties of layers, and that'll be it.